Welcome to session 3. This week, we're going to talk about a call to righteousness. Again, James continues to encourage the Christians in terms of how to react, how to live out their Christian life when facing trials in diaspora. Remember, we talk about diaspora not necessarily as being away from home, but being in a context where the way you are living is so different from the way the standards of the world or the way the world is operating is so different than the way God expects us to live that we feel that we're not at home, that home no longer feels like it. So then in this context, one of the things that we need to do in addition to live with perseverance, in addition to practice hospitality, is to live a life of righteousness. And this is where James began to bring to fore the idea of how important it is for our actions to match our words. He's talked about the fact that we should not just say certain things, but we need to also live them out. We saw last week the way in which favoritism, the way in which discrimination, all of these things happen through speech. If you say to somebody, sit here, if you say to somebody. So the way our behavior presents itself is through speech. Now he wants, as he shapes good behavior, to talk about how our action should match our speech. So that when talking about righteousness, a righteous person is a person for whom faith is active. And by active faith, we're talking about their actions, righteous actions, flowing out of a faith, a belief in God, not just belief in God for who He is, but belief in God that drives actions that match that belief. What does it mean to live a righteous life? James talks about righteousness as sacrificial obedience. He uses the example of Abraham to demonstrate the way in which Abraham's sacrificial obedience is the true example of what it means to be a righteous person. In the context of Abraham, God had given the promise to Abraham that he is going to be a great nation. And through him, all the people of the world would be blessed. But the person through whom this promise was going to happen was Isaac. All of a sudden, God is now, can you sacrifice Isaac for me? And Abraham's righteousness, from James' perspective, is demonstrated by the trust that Abraham placed in God, by the obedience, sacrificial obedience that he demonstrated. Righteousness, as far as James is concerned, can also be risky hospitality. We've talked before about hospitality, how it's dangerous. Now again, James now talk about Rahab, and to talk about the risk that Rahab took in allowing the spies to stay with her, in lying to her own people, and protecting those spies to send them back. That's risky hospitality. In the context of a pandemic, for example, we have every reason to keep to ourselves. In the context of a pandemic, in the context of political challenges, in the context of ideological differences, we have every reason to segregate and to keep to ourselves and to just do life with the people that are like us, the people that look like us, the people who vote like us. But James wants us to offer risky hospitality to people who seemingly are our enemies. This was Rahab's situation. But risky hospitality and sacrificial obedience are the ways in which what we say match what we do. If we say we are God's children, then we need to do what He asks us to do. And God asks us to be hospitable people. These are the ways in which we demonstrate our righteousness. For James, by living out faithful actions, by living out our faithfulness, by embodying God's own nature, because God is the one who is righteous and asks us to be righteous. We don't just look righteous while we are in Him. His righteousness is in us and flows out of us through actions that are faithful actions. James talks about the fact that it is not enough to say to people, "Oh, go and be well," while you know you have the means to do something about their plight. If you see the destitute in your midst and you wish them well, but do nothing tangible to help them, James is saying this is nothing. That's not righteousness. So when it comes to James then, righteousness are faithful actions that flow from the faith that we say that we have. Righteousness is sacrificial obedience. God asking you to give up perhaps what He has given you already, that which you hold very dear. God asking you to step out and invite that person that you think is your enemy, that person whom under no circumstance will you sit at a table with them. Risky hospitality, to allow yourself to be vulnerable, to allow yourself to open your heart, to embrace those who are not like you. That's righteousness. And as we go through this week, I trust that you will posture yourself as a way of allowing God to surprise you. Because what James is asking the Christians to do is not easy. But what he's asking them to do is right. This week is going to challenge you in ways that perhaps you haven't been challenged before. But I hope and pray that you'll enter it in submission, not just to ask, well, this was 2,000 years ago, this is different. Well, this was 2,000 years ago, this doesn't apply. But to ask, how might I live differently? How might I do things differently if I allow this text to make certain claims on my life in ways that transform the way I view the world, in ways that transform the way I view others, in ways that transform my heart so that I can live as a representative of a member of God's family.